Okay guys, so you'll recall I asked you way back to set up the Dropbox and share it with me. Just want to show you the list of the ones that I have, just so you can check that yours is there. No, I actually have them listed here in order of last updated. And some people don't want to play, which is okay. I mean, there's no requirement on you to put your stuff in there. But if you do update your stuff to the Dropbox, I can go in and have a look and I can see that you're doing okay or not. If I think you need some help, I can maybe help you out. If I don't have that information, then I'm relying on you in the labs to get that information to me somehow. And also, I guess you're not updating the Dropbox says you don't really care. You know? Now, you don't have to care to pass this module either, you know, but you just be careful kind of the message you're sending. Maybe the message I'm receiving and the message you're sending or not sending are not the same thing, but that's the message that I'm getting, you know. So it doesn't really matter. You don't have to do it, but it is a big help. And if you could name your Dropbox SOFT6008 and then followed by your name. Obviously, I'm not too fussy about the variations and the naming conventions after that. But, you know, web stuff means nothing to me. It may mean a lot to you, but it would mean nothing to me. So you need to give it a meaningful name. So start it with SOFT6008 and share it with me, and I can have a look. It will prove more useful later. It'll prove more useful when you're stuck and you're in a hurry and I'm not in the same room as you. Because you won't be able to email me JavaScript because the firewall will strip all the code out. So people have done that to me in the past, you know, oh, I'm really stuck with this, can you see what's wrong with it? Email it to me and I receive just that much and an empty HTML file. So it's the only way you can share stuff with me really, and we will probably use it as a submission method as well. So if you want, when time comes to submit your assignments, you probably put them in here. Now some of you would have done that in SOFT6007 with me last semester, I guess. But like, if you want to leave it till the night before the assignment to figure out how Dropbox works, you know, that's your choice. But like, good luck with that one.
So
you know?
I don't remember. I may not have been here.
Yeah, you may not have been. Yeah.
Do I need to just go to Dropbox and create a file? Is it?
You create a folder and then you share it with me.
Right.
And you could give it the name SOFT6008- whatever your name is, and then share that with me. Okay. And then if you update your stuff kind of once a week or whatever, I can very quickly pop in and pop out, see if you're doing okay or not. Now, some people are struggling a bit in the labs, so I just want to maybe today talk you through some strategies for coding some of those things that we looked at.
Do you know the checks on handout and tables? You know, you said to change the index of, you know, change that from 10 to 15. I think it actually should be 10. It says look for 0 from index 5.
We'll have a look now and we see. We're going to go through that anyway. Okay? So I'm going to go through that handout with you. If you weren't in the labs and didn't get the handout, there's some left in one of the labs upstairs, I think it's 2.2 maybe. Anyway, you can also download it, so it's no big deal. You just have to print it yourself. So I cannot stress enough the importance of writing a small bit of code and seeing if that works. So like if you're prompting for some variable, well, do the prompt, put the variable in, and then output the variable using either a document.write or an alert if document.writes aren't available to you because you're working with the DOM, and see what's in it. Okay, yip-de-doo, my prompt works. Now, if you're going to strip out the first character of that, then do that, output that, and see that works. Then if you're going to check if that character is, say, less than or greater than A and Z. Do that much and see if that works. Now it's a bit painstaking, but like if something goes wrong, you know what went wrong where. There's no point in writing like 50 lines of code, running it, you get a blank screen. You know, like that, it's very hard. I mean, even with the debugging tools, unless it's a syntax error, which is going to happen quite a lot anyway. So with a syntax error, the error console can find it for you. But if it's not a syntax error, if it's some sort of programming error or logic error, or you're doing something quite wrong, it can be very, very hard to debug JavaScript and find the bit that you're looking for. Now, depending on the debugging tools you have, in fairness, some of them are very sophisticated. And maybe you should get to grips with those. But at the same time, the programs will probably be quite short. So, you know, get into the habit of doing a small bit and testing it. Because any other way is just drive you bananas. And I'm at the stage now really where if someone presents me with a big line, you know, big program with 50 lines in it and says, it's not working and I don't know where. And I get the feeling that they've just done it all in one go. I'm telling them just to, well, copy and paste it all out and paste it back in piece by piece until you find the bit that's given out. But like, I'm not going to debug it either. It's mental, like, you just go bananas trying to find the needle in a haystack like that. It could be a semicolon out of place somewhere or whatever. So get into the habit of doing that. That's just going to be the way it is. So you want to get into the habit of doing that. It occurred to me that I didn't really show you properly how functions work in JavaScript. Now, you're probably familiar with functions anyway from your programming, but maybe not so much. You know, you might not have used functions that much. So I'm just going to show you a very, very simple function here, and we just look at the syntax of functions in JavaScript. Because you're probably going to end up writing lots of small functions, and then maybe when you have those working, wrapping those up in bigger functions, and wrapping those up in bigger functions, and then eventually, you know, when you hit a button, it'll call a big, huge function, which will do all the pieces. So this fairly straightforward program here, it asks you for 3 numbers. It just prompts for the numbers. You entered 5, 15, and 45, and the maximum is 45. So it comes back with the bigger of the 3 numbers. So we just look at the code there for that. So we call the function maximus. And so here we're saying we've got a function called maximus, and it's taking 3 parameters. Now you notice, unlike a lot of programming languages you might use, we've said nothing about the type of those parameters. Most programming languages, or programming languages that are big on typing, would want you to specify exactly what the parameter, exactly the type of each parameter, and then also specify the type of the value that's being returned. Is it a Boolean? Is it a string? Is it a number? JavaScript, not so much. You know, it's nice and flexible in a bad way, if you ask me. So this function then takes 3 parameters. Many of the functions you will write will take no parameters. But you should know how parameters work because they can be very powerful. You can do some fairly impressive things that you couldn't do if you didn't have parameters. Here we're just saying if A is greater than B and A is greater than C, then A is the winner. Now if A isn't the winner, then it's between B and C. So if B is bigger than C, B is the winner. Otherwise, C is the winner. And you notice here, this is something I like to do, which many programmers don't do. But I like to assign a value to the answer, or assign the answer to a value, and then at the very, very end, just return that answer. You could, if you wanted, return A here, and return B here, and return C here. And that would be fine as well. But I don't like to do things that way. If you know, it just seems safer this way. At least this way you're guaranteed to return something. No, so that's functions. So this takes 3 parameters, and then it returns a result. Now, in some programming languages, you make the distinction between functions and procedures, where a function returns a value and a procedure does much the same but doesn't actually return anything. In JavaScript, they're all the same. So you may have functions that don't return anything, and some that do. Well, this function must come back with an answer. Okay, any questions on that? So what we'll do now is we'll go through that handout and some of the checksums that we looked at, and just think about how we might go about coding them. Now, if you can't program to save your life, you're going to struggle with this module. So just be aware of that. I don't know where my positivity went. I had my coffee and everything. I don't know where it's all gone. Now, oops. So we saw this last week now, I guess. And this is a fairly common checksum. It's for checking credit cards. And this one is all about loops, or one loop. You can do this with one loop or two. You could go through counting up all of the odd ones and then go through counting up all of the even ones and then add them together. Alternatively, you could do one loop, and if you're on the even ones, do one thing. If you're on the odd ones, do another thing. Now, the thing you have to do that's different is for every second one, you're going to take the number and multiply it by 2 and then add up the digits. Now, from a programming point of view, that's a pain in the arse. Adding digits, like, that just doesn't work out very well. That's hard work. In this case, what you can do, I mean, if you get 16, basically, if the number's over 10, you can subtract 9 from it, and you'll have what you want. Won't you?
Just use modulus 10.
That's not the same thing now as subtracting 10 at all, though. No. Subtracting 9, I'm saying. So if the highest you could get is 18. So if you subtract 9 from 18, you're going to get 9, which is right. If you don't get 18, you'll get 16. 16 minus 9 is 7. Yeah? All the way down to, even if you do 10, 10 minus 9 is 1. That works. 12 minus 9 is 3, which is what you want. So that'll work in that situation. That's probably an easier way to go about doing that. Like I said, you can use one loop or two. It's cleverer if you use one loop, but it might be easier to use two. So looking at the algorithms for doing these, you should be able to try and visualize how you might go about it. So when you did that, problem solving and whatever it was module, that's what that was all about. I mean, some of this is just understanding the details of JavaScript, but most of these problems are, understanding how to program. So, any questions on how you might go about that one?
What are we looking for here? Because, I don't really know. Are we going to multiply every other word by 2? And
Every second number gets multiplied by 2, and you add up the digits in that number. Although, as we just said, subtracting 9, if it's greater than 10, subtracting 9 will do the same thing. You add up all those numbers then, you add up the values, and you do mod 10. If it's evenly divisible by 10, which means mod 10 equals 0, then it's good.
then where is the minus then? 9 we are talking about.
I'm saying here, if you take 8, right, and multiply by 2, you get 16. And if you add 1 and 6 together, you get 7. I'm saying that extracting the 1 and the 6 from 16 and adding them together is clumsy. But it turns out if you subtract 9 from 16, you'll get the 7 that you're looking for.
So if any number is multiplied by itself, if it's greater than 10, subtract 9 from it in the program.
Well, it works here because the greatest number you could get is 18. So we know it works for 10, 12, 14, 16, and 18.
And the smallest you can get is, and the smallest you can get is 10 dollars.
Yeah,
And that would just be minus 9, like if
1, which is what you want. So we know it works for those, for 10, 12, 16, 18, those 4 scenarios, it'll work, that'll do us. I wouldn't like to stake my reputation on what would happen after that. Beyond that, you're looking at doing something with mods or whatever. Now we see later something similar, actually, a similar scenario with the mod 9s. So does everybody understand the algorithm and how you might go about coding it?
Do you know the way you broke up the numbers and added them together?
Yeah.
It's just greater than 10.
No.
10 or
Well, yes, because if it's less than 10, it'll only be 1 digit anyway. Yeah. So like 4, like 2 times 2 is 4, so that's just 4. 4 times 8 is 8. Sorry. 2 times 4 is 8, so that just becomes 8. But if it's greater than 10, basically if it's 2 digits, you add the digits together.
Even
10 will be 1. Yeah. Which is why the mod 9 didn't work. I was saying you could do mod 9 if you wanted. Oh no, 10 mod 9 is 1 also. Yeah. So mod 9 will work as well. But what I wanted to say was you could do mod 9 in any event, but 9 mod 9 is 0, which would be wrong. So if it's greater than 10, you can do a mod 9 or subtract 9. Whichever you like. Now, you can also, if you want, extract the digits and do that. To extract the second digit, you'll do a mod 10, which will give you 6, and a div 10 will give you 1. But... Well, actually, you don't even have to do the div 10. If it's greater than 10, it's not 20, like. So, if it's greater than 10, you could do a mod 10, which will give you 6, and then add 1 to that. So I take it back. Mod 10 is also useful. Okay, so there's a couple of ways to skin that particular cat. So any questions on that? Now the ISBN and the PPS number are quite similar. And generally with checksums, many of them have this pattern where you're multiplying one digit by this, the next one by the next one, the next one by the next one. This catches digits that are swapped around. It catches that very easily. So if you do 078975516, it can catch that kind of mistake very, very easily. That's why you kind of do one off, one on, one on, one off typically as well. If you're not doing anything, if you're not doing a lot of multiplying. So again, here we've got a loop. Now this is very exciting for programming lecturers because here you're counting through the loop. You're counting through the string. You're probably doing like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to get the nth character. But here you're counting down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you're counting up and down at the same time. Imagine the excitement for me. So if you're really clever, you'll only have one counter. There is a relationship between, if this is n equals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, there is a relationship between n and this that you can exploit. But if that's going to make your head explode, you can just count up with the for loop and then initialize 10 at the beginning, and every time you go around the loop, take 1 off that. So the for loop counts up and you have a separate counter counting down, so that you get your 0 and your 10 and your 1 and your 9 and your 2 and your 8 and your 3 and your 7. and your 4 and your 6. Anyone getting the relationship between them?
Yeah.
So that can be done too if you want. But that's you know, for loops. Now there is the exception, which is troublesome, is that you have to check if the last character is x, and if it's x, then you're going to use 10 instead of whatever value will be there. So x will stand for 10. That's the only catch there. But this one is all about loops. Any questions? PPS numbers, very similar. And again, you can count up and down at the same time with separate variables, or you can have one variable counting along here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are a couple of ways to do this. I used to think there's only one way, but there's two ways. You can take the letter. Well, what I do is I take the letter, okay, and figure out what number that should be using this here. And then add that number to the total and do the mod 8. There is another way where you figure out what the letter should be and then see if the two letters match. Well, that's a bit more complicated, I think. No. We're going to look at how you will extract out the letter. We'll look at a function for that. Looking at this here and ignoring for a moment the w equals 0, there's a straightforward, clever way to do this and a not so clever way to do this. Let's say this character here is C. Okay, we put that in a variable called C somehow. The not so clever way to say is if C equals 1, then if C equals A, then x equals 1. If C equals B, then x equals 2. If C equals 3, then x equals 3. If C equals D, then x equals 4. That's 23 if statements. That's not very bright. What you can do is you can use the fact that the letters are in order. We know, for example, that uppercase A has an ASCII value of 65. And we know that uppercase B has an ASCII value of 66 and 67 and 68 and so on. So if you have the letter and you get the ASCII value of the letter, if you subtract, say it right now, Colin, 64 from that, you'll get the number you're looking for. So that's a good deal cleverer than saying if it's A then this, if it's B then this, if it's C then this, and if it's C then this. Now you also need to account for the fact that the person might reasonably put in a lowercase h. So you could check to see if it's uppercase or lowercase, and then do different things depending on if it's uppercase or lowercase. But the quickest way is to just force everything to be uppercase, and then carry on as if it is uppercase, because you know it is now, because you made it uppercase. So that's probably the quickest way. Now you might want to keep a copy of the number the person typed in, so that you can say to them, you typed in this, and that's valid or not valid, and give them back what they put in. But there's no harm in you forcing it to be uppercase in the meantime, so you can do your tests on it. You can compare, using less than and greater than operators, characters as well. So just as you can say if 4 is less than x, do whatever, you can say if this character is less than uppercase A, or it's greater than uppercase Z. So you don't have to, you can compare characters and it'll compare them alphabetically. So if you ask, for example, if character X is less than uppercase A, or character X is greater than uppercase Z, that'll tell you that it's not something that falls between A and Z. It's out of that range, which means it's not valid for you. So that's something that's something that people don't think of. You can compare strings. You can say string A less than or greater than string B. In this one you can add up all the digits, but it turns out if you treat this here, if you treat the numeric part as a big integer and do a mod 9, you get the same thing. We already discussed that. And that holds. Unless I case for the scenario where you've got 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 9, and you do a mod 9, you will get, what will you get actually? 0, which would be wrong. But apart from that one instance, should be okay. We don't need to do that one, I don't think. No, so I want to talk you through some of the functions and things you might use, and these are in that handout. I'm always banging on about types in JavaScript, okay? But you do have to be careful, because if you're not, you can get yourself into trouble. And the string 35 and the number 35 are completely different things. And most of the time they'll be fine. Sometimes they won't. So if you're dealing with numbers, make sure they're numbers. When the stuff comes in as input from the screen, it's a string by default. If you put it into a variable, it might still be a string or a number, depending. When you add it to something, if it's not clear whether they're strings or numbers at that stage, 1 plus 1 might be 11. String 1 plus string 1 might be string 11, or 1 plus 1 might be 2. But as you can imagine, it would be nice to know when you add 1 plus 1 that you're going to get 2. Be nice to be certain. So there are things you can do to force your numbers to be numbers. Where is it? Up here. So, sorry, I don't know how I've made you carsick. No, parseInt is your buddy, and you're going to be using parseInt whenever you have a string that you want to start using as a number. So let's say for the Euro banknotes one, when you extract out the numeric part by taking all the characters apart from the first one, you've got a string with all the numbers. You need to put that through parseInt to force it to be a number. If you don't do that, you might get away with it, or you might not. My bet would be you'd probably get away with it. It's also important that you specify the base, because if you don't, and the number begins with the string begins with a 0, you won't get what you're looking for. So, parseInt, the string, and then 10 is what you want. Unless for some reason you are parsing hexadecimal. No, so some things you might use. Index of will evaluate to the position of the next instance of the thing you pass into it. Basically, when you put something index of, you're saying, where is this thing I'm giving you in this string? So if you have supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, you want to say, where is cal in there? It'll come back with a number telling you where cal, the position of cal in that supercalifragilisticexpialidocious string. Okay? And that's, you'll need that for some things. So
Did it give you the very first occurrence of it?
it gives you the first occurrence, exactly, yeah. It'll give you the first occurrence. So
What about that you want the other occurrence
We're going to get to that. So, okay, so in supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, there's two als. So if you say, where's al in supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, it'll give you the first one, which is just after super. Okay? What you can also say to parsint is, starting at position whatever, give me the next one. And that's what the second parameter is. So if we were to say, if the string my s was Cork Institute of Technology, and you said index of O, it'll come back with 0, 1. So the position of the first lowercase o in that string is position 1. Remember, in JavaScript, pretty much everything starts at 0. Any array or anything like that's going to start at 0, not 1. So you say my s dot index of O, it'll evaluate to 1. If you put in the second parameter, it will start its search at the position you give in the second parameter. So if you say index of O5, it'll start at position number 5, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it'll come back with the location of the next O starting at that position, which is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yes, sir?
So if you were to, instead of using the 5, say use 3 instead of over, it would still give you 15 back.
Yes. If you said index of O3, it would still give you 15. So typically what you do, if you want to do something with every occurrence of whatever, you will find the first one, keep track of where you found it, and then start your search for it there plus 1. Okay, so that's why it evaluates to 15 and not 10 as previously advertised. You could see why I did say 10, and you could see why you would have thought it was 10. It's 10 on, but it's still in position 15. Now you have to use index of for the Finnish numbers and for the Spanish numbers. Remember, the Finnish numbers, it looked like they were doing, it was a mod 31, I think, and it looked like they were going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and whatever. So you could have handled that if they went from A to Z and then 0 to whatever. But they left out the O and the I and the J. So the problem is more apparent in the Spanish one. So we'll look at the Spanish one. So in the DNE, which we have here, zero maps to T, 1 maps to R, 2 maps to W, 3 maps to A. I have asked every Spanish computer scientist I know, and no one knows where this came from. Okay? And you couldn't find it either, could you? No. It just seems to be totally makey-uppy. Yeah. You know, so there doesn't seem to be any, like, you'd be thinking, well, maybe if you swap 2 bits around or something, you know, if you have the ASCII value and you know, the number, and if you wrap the bits around or something, you know, you might get something like this. But no, there just doesn't seem to be any, you know, pattern. No. Maybe there's an Enigma machine buried in a basement in Madrid somewhere, and that's the, you know, the keys or something. Okay, we don't know. So you can't do the ASCII trick there, where you say, well, I'll get the ASCII value and subtract 65 or 64. It's just not going to happen. So the only sensible way to do this is to make a string with T, R, W, A, G, you know, make that string, and then use index of to say, where in the string is M? And index of will come back with 5, and you go, hey, hey, that's what I'm looking for. Now you've created a function that maps from the letter to the number that you want. So while for the Irish one you can use the ASCII value, there's a mathematical mapping there. Here you don't really have a choice. You just make a big long string and go from there. Because the alternative is to say, well, if it's T, then thingy is 0. If thingy is R, then other thingy is 1. If it's W, then it's 2. Now, there may be some super secret mapping, like I said, if you do some bit twiddling, but I can't see any discernible pattern there. And the fact that there's no I and no O and no U would suggest that there isn't a pattern. Because if it was just a matter of bit twiddling the ASCII values, they might have occurred. So everybody get the idea there? Can people visualize that? Similarly then for the finish one, you'd probably do the same thing. You just make a string with those. What other functions do we have that are useful? Substring will extract out a chunk of a string for you. So to get the first character, you do substring. Or to get the nth character, you do substring. Or to get the first 3 characters, you do substring.
Is that the same as slice then?
No. Slice is destructive.
I thought it was splice though.
I'm confused.
Yeah, 'cause there's loads.
Yeah, there's loads of them. There's substring, slice, and splice. Stay away from splice anyway. Okay? That's lethal. The difference between substring and slice. I don't know. One might be destructive, but I think it's just splice. You could find out the hard way, all right?
Yeah.
Do you know? Substring works anyway, okay? And with substring, you specify the position of the first character that you want. You're specifying a range of characters. So the first parameter is the position of the first character, and the second parameter is the position of the final character that you want, with 1 added to it. So substring 26 will give you character number 2, 3, 4, and 5, but not 6. Like I said, when I'm king, the people that wrote JavaScript are going to be shot.
We got the same for Java as well.
Hmm?
We got when using substrings in Java.
Yeah, it does the same in Java, does it?
Yeah.
Now you could see though how that might be useful if you have a loop, so the last position last time is the first position this time, it does save you an increment in there. So if we look here at Cork Institute Technology, remember now that the first character is 0, so it's going to be 0, 1, 2. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, and we stop before we get to 6. Okay? You'll see you using substring a lot too. So that's how you'll slice off the first letter of the euro banknote number, and how you'll slice off the other ones, the other characters. If you say substring 2 nothing, I guess it would probably, I don't know, I've never tried it. Yeah, I guess you could just say substring 2 nothing and it'll go to the end. Maybe. It's worth a try, but yeah, haven't thought of that. I'm not very adventurous. No.
Didn't that come up in one of the examples last year? When you were doing the int start int end? Which is automatically at the end.
One of the examples or in the exam? don't know. I wouldn't have. It's the first I heard of it, so if it came up, it wasn't intentional. You're thinking maybe of don't know. Oh, sorry. It is worth pointing out that for index of, if it doesn't find the thing it was looking for, it comes back with -1. So if it doesn't come back with it, because you could say, well, it could come back with 0, but see, 0 is an actual valid answer because the first character would be 0. So it comes back with -1 if it didn't find it. And sometimes you need to know whether it found it or not. No. Yes. Yeah, work away. Floor rounds down, ceiling rounds up, and round just rounds up or down to the nearest integer. Parsint we talked about. Now char@ is a way of extracting a single character from a string. But you could just use substring for that anyway. So like substring 5, 6 is the same as saying char@ 5. What's more useful is char code@. That's the ASCII value of the nth character. If you pass in, so here if we say char, oh, sorry now, that's another typo there, isn't there? Yeah. Look at that there now, another typo, look. This should be char code@. So char code@ 5 is the ASCII value of the 5th character, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which looks right, doesn't it? 65, well yeah, looks right anyway. Yeah. So it's char code@ 5. I think that mistake is obvious though from looking at it.
The fifth character would be nothing there, no?
0, 1, see, look, can you see?
Yeah,
It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
yeah.
The first character is character number 0. The first month in JavaScript is 0. January is 0, not 1. So like, as I said before. No. So, any questions on any of that? So I think now, like, you have all the pieces of the jigsaw that you need to code those checksums. But as you know, that's not a trivial task. You know, putting the pieces of the jigsaw together in programming is tricky enough. But you need to be able to visualize what it is you're trying to do and then go away and do it step by step. So you need to look at the algorithm and say, okay, well, I'm going to take this character here, put that into C or whatever. I'm going to take these characters here, put them into that. Then what do I need to do next? And so on and so on. Any questions?
This one is sending back 73. Code@ 5 is 73.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72. You know that's correct? Yeah, uppercase I has an ASCII value of 73. Because A has an ASCII value of 65. So when you need the ASCII value, you'll use char code@. If you want to extract a single character, you can use char@, or you can just use a substring. You're probably so used to substring at that stage, you'll just use substring. So that's all the JavaScript you need. Now, the programming wherewithal is a whole other skill set, really, that it would be great if you'd had before you came into this module, and if you don't, you're going to have to develop it in time to get out the other side of this module. So if your programming is weak, you need to just kind of brush up on that. And the JavaScript isn't hard, it's just a bit fiddly from time to time. Any questions on any of that? So I put a shopping list of the things you should do on the blog. So go through those. I guess really you should get those kind of done next week. Maybe just write a function for each one that'll come back then with true or false. If you get into trouble, let me know and I will have a look in your Dropbox and see if I can help you out. Any questions?
This one
Okay.
day you had to say about floor.